Microsoft have now fixed the watermask issue that was introduced with World Update 15. The problem removed some of the gorgeous looking areas. You can see on the screen right here, these are actually the fixed versions. The good news is these were uploaded and updated just a couple of days ago. These were server-side fixes. So if you fancy flying around Nassau and the Bahamas, the Caribbean, all those lovely places, then they should look much improved right about now. Elsewhere, in a massive Q&A from the developers, they discussed improvements to harbours, changes to frozen water, river and water maps, what's happening with seasons and Flight Sim 2020 versus Flight Sim 2024, and there's some information on the next city update. So today we're going to go through all of those things, but first I very quickly want to return to those watermasks to finish off a few more details. So you may have noticed that on some of the screenshots here, there's these strange looking square areas, and this is something you may have noticed in other areas around the world too. So it's a bit of a glitch, a bit of a graphical problem, shall we say, that's kind of ruined the overall feel of these lovely areas. Now Microsoft have said that they are very much aware of this and they're going to be doing further work to fix these. Right now it sounds as though they're in the experimental stage for that, so don't expect to see anything immediately, but it is something that should be coming a little bit further down the line. Now in terms of other improvements elsewhere, again still water related, a number of people have asked about harbours. Some of these around the world do look pretty good, especially in the photogrammatic cities, but others look less than perfect. Now, Jörg Newman, head of Microsoft Flight Simulator, has said that these areas are going to be improved, these harbours. In fact, they've got a team going through all of this city by city. Their job is to ensure that bridges are accurate, that they can be flown under, that landmarks are also equally accurate. In short, their job is to go around all the cities that have previously been updated to actually clean many of the problems. So yes, that should also include fixing and repairing these problematic harbours. Okay, so moving on to a different subject, the topic of frozen water. This is where water freezes in lakes and rivers around various places on the world. Now you may remember we have discussed this before, and the problem is that water has been frozen in places it really shouldn't be freezing. And you may remember that the cause of this is because the sim is freezing water in areas where snow is of a certain depth. And to fix this problem in future, Microsoft are going to increase the threshold at which snow needs to reach before the water actually freezes. In short, snow depth is the parameter which determines whether water should be frozen or not. But this all leads to one very specific question: why Microsoft using snow depth and not temperature? I've seen that question asked in the comment section to my videos, and it's also asked around the internet on the forums and other places. After all, it would make sense to use a temperature, right? Well, it turns out that no, not quite. And firstly, that's because sometimes ambient temperature may reach minus 15 degrees Celsius, for example, but it's not there long enough to affect the temperature of the water and not there long enough for it to actually freeze. And then there's other environmental factors at play, such as how much salt is in the water. This also affects the temperature at which the water may freeze. And this is why Microsoft prefer to rely on satellite mapping imagery instead. If there's snow laying on top of water, then that water has to be frozen, because the snow can't actually lay on water that's not frozen. And to prove all of these points, Asobo showed a number of different images. Here we've got a map of the ice shelves, and here we've got a map of snow depth, and you can see there's quite a bit of overlap between the two different images. In fact, they're fairly reasonably similar to each other. But on the other hand, if we compare the map of ice shelves to the map of temperatures, we can see there's a lot of discrepancies here. And this is why Microsoft haven't gone with the temperature map as an indicator as to where and when water will freeze. In short, Asobo and Microsoft are very much aware that this isn't the perfect solution, that is using snow depth as a measurement for this, but it's the only viable option. So yeah, they basically know that it comes with a lot of problems doing it this way, but it's the best way they have to do it right now. At least until at some point in the future maybe there's better ice shelf data that actually covers rivers and lakes and not just oceans. Now, sticking with the subject of rivers and water maps, and yeah, everything seems to be about water and rivers and weather this time around, doesn't it, in this video? But the question come up about rivers and how they can track very inaccurately across certain landscapes. In fact, some of you may have noticed this, where you see rivers going up and over the top of mountains or hills, and it can look very, very strange. Well, apparently the reason for this all comes down to the quality of the DEMS, that's the digital elevation maps. That determines the quality of the landscape. So for those of you that may not be familiar with this term, the digital elevation maps are basically digital models of the landscape that they're actually modelling. This data is either captured by satellite, or alternatively it can be captured by airplanes flying around and recording or capturing the data beneath them. Now, the quality of these models can vary greatly, and that all comes down to the resolution. The resolution is determined by effectively the size of the grids. For example, if you have a digital elevation map that is measured at 50 meters, that means that the data points are captured with gaps of 50 meters, or 50 meters between each data point. That's considered fairly low resolution. On the other hand, you may have DEMs that are measured at 2 meters, meaning that each data point is just 2 meters apart. This means that it captures the landscape model in much finer detail. So throughout the sim, it uses a mix of different quality digital elevation maps. Some of them are very high resolution, some of them are pretty low. It turns out though that, generally speaking, Microsoft don't like to go any lower than 30 meters, although there are a few 50 meters dotted around. The reason for me explaining all of this is because the reason some of the rivers run incorrectly, they're tracking the wrong direction or go over mountains, is in the areas where they have low quality maps. So this is something that is going to improve over time. Microsoft say they are in contact and working with governments and organisations from all over the world, and they're doing this to gain better DEMs. Another topic similarly related to this is the quality of the world maps, how up to date they are. There's some places around the world that are simply way out of date, and this is because the Bing data, the world map data that was used for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is now getting on a bit. So Microsoft have said that with the 2024 version of Flight Sim, they're going to be completely overhauling all of the world data and will be bringing it Bing up to date to the latest Bing maps. They're also very clear to emphasise that the 2020 version of the sim will also benefit from this. Effectively, they both share the same world data. Meanwhile, on the subject of Flight Simulator 2024, well, there's this subject about seasons. For a very long time on the roadmap, seasons was something that was going to be coming for Flight Sim 2020. In fact, going all the way back to one of the very early trailers, it did seem to show seasons for 2020. However, when asked about this, Asobo stated that, well, it was never really their intent to show seasons in 2020. Instead, they were really just showing snow and perhaps some tree colour changes. When they talk about seasons in 2024, they mean full-on environmental seasons that affect the entire planet and everything that goes along with that. Asobo have said that is a massive amount of work, and it means throwing out a lot of code and completely rewriting it. So this is something they're going to be doing with Flight Sim 2024 and not 2020. The final point I'd like to mention in this particular video is City Update 6. So this is going to cover southwest Germany, and you can see screenshots of the changed cities, the improved cities on the screen right here. As I record this, there's no release date for City Update 6 just yet, but by the time you watch it, there may be an updated roadmap over on the Flight Sim dev blog. Either way, there's plenty more coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator over the coming weeks and the coming months. The livestream Q&A also featured a bunch of other topics that I do want to get into and really kind of deep dive into, but that will have to go into another video, so keep an eye out for that one. I'll try and get it out there very soon. Meanwhile, why not check out the other video on the screen right here? I'll catch you all next time. Take care.